Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is the 10th episode of my backyard plant propagation series. We did our first flat last week and it's in the house and it looks great. I'll show it to you later in this episode. Today I'm going to do some Ligustrum that I collected and some azaleas and some beautyberries. I'd like to do more than that, but there's a lot of things in the nursery that just aren't hardened off yet, or in the landscape that aren't hardened off enough to take them. I don't take hardwood cuttings, but the wood that's on a lot of this material is just really still very soft, and it's just much easier if I wait another week or so, let that harden off just a little bit. I tend to get much higher percentages, so that's what I'm going to do in that case. I've already taken them out of the bag and prepped a little bit here. We were getting thunderstorms virtually every single day, and my forecast for the next 2 weeks is 70% chance of thunderstorms. We are in a very wet pattern. Got 100% humidity. Don't have any problem with these things drying out at all. So, and I've had to turn down the water in the hoop house quite a bit. Anyway, I'll show you how Ligustrum, azaleas, and beautyberries. And beautyberries are just a deciduous shrub that gets a purple berry in the fall, gets little flowers on it in the late spring or summer that become those berries. This thing could represent pretty much any deciduous flowering shrub, any kind of hydrangeas, which I'll show you hydrangeas specifically later, but very similar to hydrangeas, spireas, anything that loses its leaves in the winter are super easy like these are, and pretty much any part of the plant will root. Azaleas are pretty easy as well, as long as the cutting looks like this, and I'll show you just in a minute what that looks like. And Ligustrum would pretty much represent any evergreen shrub, just like the Nellie Stevens hollies we did last week. Those are all going to be pretty easy as long as you do these semi-hardwood cuttings like this. Again, like I said last week, if you don't know what soil mix I'm using in these flats or anything about these flats or the dip and grow formula or how I collected the cuttings, it's all in the previous videos, as well as instructions on how to build the hoop house as well that you're going to see at the end of the video. Anyway, on these beautyberries, we get a lot of material on one of these plants, and I will take this just above this second leaf here and I'll cut this off pretty much to the bottom of that one. Just dispose of that, and then take these leaves off the bottom right there. And that wound, that angled cut, and that wound that I just made from where I took those leaves off is absolutely perfect for these. I'll dip it in the dip and grow for a second. And then again, we're putting it into the cell about halfway down and then pinching it in. I talked about that last week. We definitely don't want to slam them to the bottom of the cell. I have already prepped a lot of these. This is another example of a plant that has flowers on it, and I definitely want to take any flowers off of it. That's just going to try to use water, and we need to conserve water when we don't have roots. So we're dipping that in, sticking about halfway down, pinching it in, and I'm just going to continue with this. Actually, here's another example. This one's got a little side shoot on it that's just going to use too much water and 2 flowers on it. So I'm going to get those off as well. And I'm going to put a fresh cut on it because I had cut it earlier. And then I've got my wound from where the leaf was on that side, and then this angled cut. And that should callus perfectly for us. And we'll stick it halfway down and pinch it in. I'm going to do 3 rows of these beautyberries. This is a Formosa azalea. It gets large purple flowers on it. If you've ever watched the Masters golf tournament at Augusta National, this is one of the varieties that they have there. It's a very hardy variety, has large leaves and large flowers. This wood here in the middle will root, but it roots very slowly. So I like to take the pieces from this year's growth that have this green stem. They're slightly woody, but they haven't turned that brown bark color yet. And so you can see how easy these are. There's really not much to these. I'll take the bottom, maybe 3 leaves off of that, and then we definitely want to take out the new tender growth from the very top like that, and that's what we're going to be left with. I may remove another leaf or 2 off of that, but that's an azalea cutting, and they're pretty much the same across the board. We've wounded it with our cut on the bottom. You can put a scrape on these if you want to, because when you pull the leaf off on azaleas, it really doesn't leave much of a wound, so it can be a little scratch on the bottom on the edge like that will give another place for it to root from. I'll dip it in, stick it in about halfway, and pinch it in, and we'll just repeat that. I'm just taking those few leaves off the bottom, taking that most tender growth off from there, and that's what I'm left with. I might take this one additional large leaf off that might block the water from getting to the other ones. And that's just absolutely perfect. Super, super easy. Again, if I want to put a little mark on the side of it, scrape that bark off a little bit, dip it, and stick it in like that. And that's an azalea cutting. This coloration on the stem is what you want to look for. We don't want it to be super soft like that. We want it to be slightly firm, but not have the color have changed yet. So I'm going to go ahead and stick maybe 3-4 rows of these azaleas. Okay, so the last thing I'm putting in this flat is a ligustrum. I got the same thing going on down here at the bottom that I had on the other two, where the wood is starting to change colors a little bit, but it hasn't become woody. This is the part that I want to use. I'm going to take these bottom two leaves off here, and I can just cut this right above that next group of leaves right there. And on a ligustrum, that's really all I need to do. I'll put a new angled cut on there. I might scrape it like that. I hope you can see that. And dip it, stick it about halfway in. Now, I'm going to get one more off of this piece. I'm going to take these bottom two leaves off again, and exactly the same way, put a new angled cut on it, put a little scrape on the side of it. I'm going to stick that one in. Now, I'm actually going to throw this part away. This will definitely root, but I don't want to put it in this flat with these that are slightly heavier wood. These will root at a different rate, and I'll end up overwatering or underwatering another one. If I was going to root these, which many times I would, I'd throw them in a separate pile and put them in a completely separate flat. This soft wood will definitely root either faster or slower, I don't know, before I put it in the greenhouse, but I want to put consistent pieces in the same flats. So I'm going to go ahead and stick the last 3 rows with these ligustrum. So after I'm finished with the flat, I did mark everything in here. I'm a little more cautious with what I put on the tag for a deciduous shrub like these Japanese beautyberries. They're going to lose their leaves in the winter. I'm definitely not going to be able to tell any difference between these and anything else that loses their leaves. So I did write that out a little more. Japanese beautyberry and 617. I did cut it down enough though that the water's going to be able to get to the leaves. If you use a long tag that sticks, way up, it'll definitely interfere with the water. For these Formosa azaleas, they'll have leaves in the winter. I'll know it's an azalea, so I just put FOR for Formosa. And this ligustrum is a Ligustrum recurvifolium, so I just gave myself initials there. That will help me. You need to write, whatever you're going to need to write to make sure you remember what you've stuck. Okay, so I got the second flat in, but I wanted to show you guys something. Here's a lantana right here from last week. Hope you can see that. We've actually already got roots on the bottom of this one. This is 6 days. And you can see the rooting that we have taken place on this. It's just absolutely perfect. I'm gonna be careful putting him back in without breaking those roots. I'll pinch it back in about halfway down. The crepe myrtles are calloused. You can see how it's starting to bulge along here. That's the callousing that I'm talking about. And we'll see roots on this, I think, next week. I think next week I'll be able to show you that we have roots on these crepe myrtles already. So I think we're actually going to be able to get 2 rounds on a lot of things. And there's our water. I've just got it coming on for 2 seconds now, every 5 minutes. It's been very, very cloudy for the last couple weeks. I may even have to back off and go to 6 or 7 minutes apart. But anyway, that's it. Thanks everybody for watching. And if you have any questions about backyard propagating, ask away.